This encounter is reported by Sue Baker and took place in July 1975 in Manistee County, Michigan. I never saw it, but in 1975, I was newly married, about 21 years old, and had a small baby. My sister, who was a teenager, was visiting us. My husband, my sister, and I had all gone to our bedrooms to settle down and go to sleep. I would say it was around 11 or 12 at night. We were just starting to relax and get sleepy, when out of nowhere, there was this horrible, loud howl. I mean, it was so loud it made my chest vibrate and my ears hurt. The sound was not human, but had a guttural, human-like sound, mixed with what sounded like a wolf. We were living in a mobile home at the time, and it howled just outside our back door, in the hallway near our bedroom. We jumped out of bed, looked at each other, and both said at the same time, "What the hell was that?" My husband was 10 years older than I was, and was an avid hunter. He wasn't the kind of guy to scare easily. His face drained of color. My sister came running down the hallway, white as a ghost, and said, "What was that?" I told her I didn't know. My husband said he was getting his rifle and grabbed it out of the closet. He opened the back door and yelled out into the wind, "You better get the hell out of here, or I will blow your head off." He listened a moment before I yelled at him to please shut the door. He did, and we never heard any more after that. Needless to say, we stayed up all night, afraid to go to sleep. I have never forgotten that howl. There is no way it was a dog or coyote. I have heard both howls. It wasn't a guy joking around either. It was so loud, there was no way a human could have made that sound. This next encounter also took place in Manistee County, Michigan, although this occurrence took place on the 30th of October, 2016. My friend and I were walking in the woods behind my house, and I was recording with my phone. Something made me look in a certain direction. I saw a black figure who appeared to be standing on two legs with long arms. Completely black and hairy, about 7 feet tall. It turned towards us. We ran. At first I thought it was a bear, but after viewing the video we realized it was definitely not. It had been behind a tree and then came out and turned towards us. It stood completely still and made no effort to advance towards us. We didn't give it a chance. I grabbed my friend and yelled, "Go." We watched a video on a big screen TV, and it looked like a werewolf. It had pointy ears and long arms. Could not see the eyes. I believe if this was not a demon, it was a Dogman. This next encounter took place in Oceana County, Michigan, and was submitted by Laura Love in February 2009. My encounter happened in February 2009. In November 2008, I broke my arm and was basically stranded at home. I was unable to drive or work and was going stark, raving mad with boredom. My best friend would drive the 35 miles north from Muskegon to pick me up in Shelby, just to take me back to where she came from, for me to visit her at her home. She'd take me to dinner or out to see a movie, only to deliver me home to Shelby after whichever activity. It was truly a selfless act of love. One night, she was driving me home. It was very late, well after 11 p.m. We were on S31 northbound, around the Rothbury area of Oceana County, on the expressway. Being February in Michigan, the roads were naturally snowy, with scattered patches of ice and bare pavement. There was a small pickup truck in front of us, about 5 car lengths ahead of her car, when all of a sudden we saw something on 2 legs dart out from the left, just in front of an overpass. It ran across the 2-lane highway and hit the back of the small pickup in the rear quarter panel, causing the pickup to fishtail. Luckily, the driver of the small pickup regained control, but they didn't stop to see what collided with their truck. If anything, it seemed to pick up speed and get the heck out of there. My friend and I watched in utter astonishment as the creature finished running to the right and disappeared into the weeds and trees along the highway. It didn't even break stride after it hit the truck. We looked at one another, sat in silence for a moment, and then I said, "Did you see?" She said, "Yeah, I saw it." We finished the ride to my house in silence, both lost in our thoughts. It looked like a giant dog or wolf. It was on its hind legs, not all fours, and it was at least 7 feet tall. It had pointed ears, a kind of mane around its neck, much like a lion's mane, and was dark in color. and its hind legs looked like a dog's, which was even more pronounced, as it was running only on its hind legs. Its front legs were freely swinging as it ran, and it seemed to have its mouth slightly open. It had an elongated face, very much like a collie, and a long nose protruding from it. Its face was covered by longish hair. The entire creature seemed to be covered in long hair, but I can't recall if it had a tail. Something tells me it did, but I can't recall for certain, so I don't want to say it did, when in fact I'm not sure. We thought perhaps it may have been one of the Michigan Dogmen that are said to be in our area. Being a former Native American area, we have heard the stories but never met anyone who had a first-hand encounter. It was always someone who knew someone who knew someone who saw something. But now, my best friend and I definitely saw it. We had a first-hand experience. Our encounter was brief and over in a matter of mere moments, but it was front and center of us, and we saw it clear as a bell. The next encounter also took place in Oceana County and was reported anonymously in January 2016. I encountered a bipedal wolf-like creature here in western Michigan, and it's got me spooked. I was out shoveling snow, as it's common here in my state. My encounter happened in a place just south of Rothbury, Michigan. One day I decided to take a walk in my family's woods. That's when my life changed forever. My family owns 270 acres of land here in the city of Montague, Michigan. I ventured out into those woods, as I've done many times, won hundreds of them. The walk started as anyone would. I started to follow the creek south to check for deer stands on our property. The walk went as planned until I got about 300 yards south of the house. I stopped to have a cigarette. My eyes started to wander as I scoped for deer or coyote. As I gazed back and forth, I noticed this figure and froze. This thing made eye contact with me and then stood up. It was hairy, had very broad shoulders, and amber-colored eyes. It let out a growl unlike any other I've heard. This wolf, as I call it, made 2 leaps and was gone. The most surprising thing about this encounter was how silent the woods were when I had my encounter. Next up, encounters in Washtenaw County, Michigan. Anonymously reported and supposedly occurred mid-September 2005, July 20th, 2015, and February 21st, 2017. I have had 3 different encounters with 3 different creatures. I know what I saw. When I was younger, I saw what looked like a wolf or big German shepherd on its hind legs running through a very thick patch of woods. It only happened for a second, but I remember the long muzzle and pointed ears distinctly. The second encounter was more exciting. It was late at night, after a small barbecue party at my uncle's farm, miles north of Ann Arbor. I was coming out of the barn to get some more food when I heard sticks breaking in the tree line to my right. My first impression was that one of the dogs got outside, so I went to go see if that was the case. I walked towards the sound and remember hearing the creature flinch because the movement stopped as I approached. I called out for the golden retriever and peered into the trees. The barn had spotlights facing the house, and with the white paint job on it, they created a glow that allowed me to see better. About 7 feet off the ground, a long muzzle poked through the trees, followed by the full figure of this creature. It was only 20 feet away from me, so I got the full picture. It was tall and lean, but very muscular. It had a distinct brown pelt on its body, with blackish fur on its shoulders. It had huge paws for feet, but its hands looked like they had 5 fingers, so they resembled long human hands, except for the fur and claws on them. Its head was the scariest. This thing had a huge set of canines. It looked like it was snarling, but I believe it was trying to smile. I couldn't make out exactly what its eye color was because of how dark it was, but they pierced into my soul. As the creature came into full view, I remember saying out loud to myself, "Werewolf." I backed up slowly, and the creature stood there, like a proud man standing over a deer he had hunted. It watched me for about 30 seconds, but it felt like 30 minutes. That's when my father, uncle, cousin, and grandfather all came out of the barn. When I tell you this thing ran, I mean it ran. It turned around, dropped to all 4s, and leaped into the forest, making only a slight noise. I told my cousin about it, but he didn't believe me. I knew my father wouldn't believe me because he doesn't believe in anything. 4 days ago, in my own backyard, the same type of creature knocked on my window. My curtains were drawn to give me a view of the woods. I live in the middle of a patch of woods near a fire road. I wasn't asleep yet and couldn't describe what was wrong, but I felt uneasy. I was trying to sleep when I heard a slight scrape at the house wall below my window. My window is 8 feet off the ground. When I sat up in bed to see what was going on, I saw the head of what I can only describe as a werewolf in my window, which is only 10 feet from my bed. I cursed, jumped up, turned on the light, and grabbed the survival machete I had in my closet. I turned to see if it was still there, and it had disappeared. The next day I went out to see if I could find any tracks or anything that might prove what I saw, but never found a thing. And finally, as this episode's last entry, we have another anonymous submission, this time from Mackinac County, also in Michigan. This occurrence took place in January of 2016. Normally, I carry a 10mm handgun on my belt wherever I go. On this day, I was heading to my doctor's office for lab work, so I did not put my firearm and holster on my belt, but I did bring it in my truck. Due to road construction, I was taking a back road to town. As I turned down that road, I noticed something about half a mile up the road into a field on the other side. It looked canine. As I approached the area, I slowed down to have a look. Standing in this field was the largest wolf I have ever seen, and 2 different packs of wolves run in the areas between where I live and the town where my doctor's office is. I'm very familiar with wolves, so much so that me being curious about it is an anomaly itself, but I was so curious about this huge wolf that I just had to stop to get a picture with my phone. Everyone, please understand that for some reason I'm not in my right mind at this point. I'm never curious about wolves, even such huge wolves, and I would not leave my truck to get a picture. Yet here I find myself grabbing my phone, shutting off my truck, and walking out into this field to get a picture. I cannot describe what was going on in my head at that moment. All I knew is that I needed to get a picture up close. The wolf moved behind this huge set of bushes. I couldn't see through them at all, so I veered to my right to circle the bushes to get my picture. As I came around the bushes, I came face to face with this wolf. It's about 5 or 6 feet away from me. I stopped moving, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm hearing the words "get the picture" as I raise my phone. The wolf growls, and somehow I feel like I understand the growl. This was a warning growl telling me I needed to back off. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end, and I snapped out of whatever was going on. Shoving my phone into my pocket, I say very loudly, "If you want to get hostile with me, buddy, then I have a little something for you." I reach for my pistol, which is always on my side. I grab air. I run my hand along my belt looking for it. My eyes aren't leaving this wolf. It's not there. Then it occurs to me, I didn't put it on my belt because I was driving to a gun-free zone to have lab work done. It's in my truck. Purposefully, I turn and walk to my truck. My adrenaline is racing and my instincts are screaming at me to run as fast as I can, but my brain is telling me this wolf is bigger than I am. I'm 6'4" tall, over 300 pounds. I'm not the fittest, but definitely strong enough to contend with a normal wolf in a pinch, and this thing made me feel small, and that running will trigger that predatory instinct. If I run, I won't make it to my truck. I reach my truck and grab the handle. Casting a glance over my shoulder, I see the wolf standing with its front legs on the gravel right across the road from me, and I knew that it hadn't let me get further away than that particular distance. I hopped into my truck, slammed the door, and reached under my center console for my pistol. As I draw it from the holster, I can see a huge nose in the corner of my eye about the center of my driver's side window. I also realized that I had never chambered a round into that firearm that morning. The full weight of my stupidity hit me in that moment as I racked a round into the chamber. I glanced out the window and got a sense that this wolf was amused. The look on its face, its posture, the eyes. Those damned eyes were so human-like that I could read this creature's emotions. It was fully amused while equally curious as to why a thin-skinned and squishy creature such as a human would actually walk right up to it on purpose. I started my truck, put it in drive, and gently pushed the gas pedal. I knew it wasn't going to hurt me. Mocked me, Yes, but hurt me, no. As I started driving away, movement in my rearview mirror caught my eye. The wolf had turned and started walking back into the field. On its two hind legs.